Hey guys, sorry for the delay on this update. Since the last devlog, I've mainly been focused on developing the NPC vision and behavior systems, as well as creating models for all of the Snapper age classes. The first thing that I started working on since the last devlog is a vision system for the NPCs that uses box traces, which are basically boxes that are projected in front of the caster every zero point 0.2 seconds. The first thing that I implemented since the last devlog is a vision system for the NPCs using box traces that are projected in front of the caster every zero point 0.2 seconds. These traces detect both other NPCs and the player, identify their relationships to the caster, and then pass that information on into the behavior decision tree function, which determines whether the caster should flee, attack, school, or perform any other behavior based on the position of the NPCs or players that it sees and their predator-prey relationships to those entities that it sees. As a part of that system, I added NPC combat interactions. So for snappers, which is kind of the focal species I've been starting out with, if an NPC detects a valid prey target, it'll track them, and then once it enters its attack range, so its distance away from the entity that it's attacking, it transitions into a high-speed pursuit state and then executes an attack once it gets right up next to him. Attacks can be broken off though if you get a certain distance away from the attacker, or if the attacker has been in attack state without executing attack for a certain amount of time. The next thing I started working on is schooling behavior, which is still very much a work in progress. My first approach at creating schooling behavior was I tried aligning individual fish based on their visible nearby schoolmates, again, relying on those box traces as a part of the vision system. But that turned out to be very difficult to stabilize. One of the main challenges I was facing with that is managing multiple behaviors at once without having conflicting movement vectors, because fish, they need to be kind of doing a lot of different things at the same time. They need to be like focusing on not running into walls, not going above the surface of the water, schooling, fleeing from enemies, maybe attacking enemies, and so on. And so vectors is basically like the direction that you're heading. And so all of those different behaviors influence the vector of the fish, and so you need to be very, very careful like what is deciding the vector of the fish at what point in time. And so I've been struggling a lot with that. I'm now experimenting with kind of a more leader-based system where once two fish see each other using the vision system, they'll then designate one of them as the school leader, and then others, as they see the school, they'll join into that school and orbit around that one leader fish. One part that is working well though is repulsion, which is where if two like NPCs or an NPC and a player get too close to each other or overlap, kind of like clipping through one another, they'll actually get like gently pushed apart to stop that clipping into one another. And that's working pretty well. I've also been working on creating the models for the other Snapper age classes, which includes 4 different age classes. There's the yolk sac larvae, which are kind of larval fish that still have they're still reliant on a yolk sac, and they may have started feeding, but they're just at the very beginning of feeding, and so the yolk sac is pretty small. Then there's the late stage larvae, which are looking generally a lot more like a snapper than the yolk stage larvae, but they're still very like translucent, transparent. And this is basically just before the snapper settles onto the seafloor. It's a point in time where that differentiates the larval stage from the juvenile and adult stages, where the snappers kind of go from the swimming kind of in the open water to more swimming at the bottom of the water near the seafloor. The third age class is juveniles, so they kind of look like adults, but they're not sexually mature, and then adults, of course. And this part, creating these models, was incredibly time consuming. I had to create new meshes, new textures, I had to alter skeletons, re-import all the animations for each of the different age classes into Unreal from Blender, so that basically the proportions would stay correct across the different models. If I didn't do that, they looked really weird and it just didn't look good. And then for the younger age classes, the ones that have translucency, because I felt like that was a really important thing to include, I've been running into some issues where translucency basically isn't rendered correctly underwater, which I'm still very much working on resolving. So yeah, each age class now has its own also defined trophic relationship. So every age class, let's take age class 0, so the yolk stage, the yolk sac larvae. They have basically an array that says the relationship to all the other different age classes and all the different other fish. Once I add more fish in, what relationship they have to them. So that array will say the relationship to snapper age class 0, which is again what they are. It'll say that they're neutral. Then for snapper age class 1, it'll also say that they're neutral because they're pretty close in size. But for snapper age class 2 and 3, it'll say that they're prey, because snapper age class 2 and 3 like to eat little baby fish, and so yeah, they'll attack the snapper age class 0, or the yolk sac larvae. I've also been working, of course, I added in different speed values, health values, progression parameters for all the different age classes for both the NPCs and the player. So all these different age classes are playable by the NPCs and the player. I've also implemented the age class switching system, which basically transitions the player to the next age class once their progress bar fills and they've been in the game for enough time and eaten enough organisms. They'll unlock the next age class. On the UI side, I've made a number of stylistic changes so that the abilities and their associated buttons unlock visually as you progress through the ages, instead of everything being visible from the start, as you can see on the screen. And yeah, that's most of what I've done. Next, I'm planning on focus on rebuilding the ocean environment and wave systems from scratch, because I previously used the Unreal water plugin, which has it looks good, but has a number of issues, and so I need to basically kind of reverse engineer and do it from scratch in order to fix those issues, which includes that translucency issue that I mentioned earlier. I'm also considering dynamically reducing fog as the player ages, so that the world gradually feels kind of larger and more open over time as you increase from larvae to adult. Because right now it feels like the larvae, they can see way too much of the world, so they need to have their vision reduced for the player, that is. And then after that, I'll probably start I'll start creating some more environmental map assets and add those into the world, as well as continue refining NPC behaviors. Once all of that is in place, I'm going to start implementing player and NPC spawning systems that, again, scale with age, along with NPC area navigation to stop, for example, pelagic fish from being on coral reefs. After that, I'll likely do another dev update before moving on to creating more fish models. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Uh, I also set up a Discord server for Overfished development if you'd like to stay even more up to date with the progress of the game or chat about the game's design or development. So yeah, thanks for watching.